You may be thinking to yourself, wow, last week got a little crazy towards the end of the week. This was a huge move up. We had a large amount of implied volatility. Maybe this week will be more chill. But unfortunately, we have the opposite because we have across the board, you guys know on Patreon, the link in the description, we give you guys some weekly ranges that use the implied volatility in order to find out how high or low a stock could go with a 68% probability. It's a very, very useful tool. Look at that on Patreon. We just added Palantir to it, but every single implied volatility has increased, okay? So on that list, it's all but like TLT. TLT is like the only one that didn't have an increase in implied volatility. Every single stock that we cover on this channel has higher implied volatility going on this week, which means we can see some bigger swings. So we have to pay attention, and we definitely need to do some technical analysis for the SPY Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, Nvidia, AMD, and Meta going forward. And we're going to look at AMC and GME because some big things could be happening on Monday unless we get some kind of rejection of momentum to the upside. So let's get into it. Starting off with the SPY, you're going to notice, wow, we got a pretty big range here for those daily expected moves. We have these red lines here. These are the daily expected moves. So this is our 68% zone for Monday, and so we have to pay attention to that. One key thing to notice is 562.75, very, very close to where that monthly rejection started to take place. So we'll pay attention to that for some kind of rebound on those short time frames. But as of right now, that 30-minute really looks like it wants to dip down to lower prices. So we'll pay attention to that. We see the reversal signals, right? We see these reversal signals, so we have to pay attention to 2-hour charts. And then we have 557.23 to the downside. If we get a little excited, go down to that level, we could see some kind of bounce from there. 68% chance of that. 32% chance to see something crazy when you get outside of these zones. So don't think it has to bounce up. You want to make sure to see those reversal signals if it's going to bounce up. All right, now looking forward though, and I have to zoom out to see those weekly ranges. Okay, so the weekly ranges for the SPY this week are going to be 567 on the dot, and then we have 552.98 to the downside. So around these areas are where we are really going to look for some reversal signals. You guys know my volatility play that I took. I'm just looking for us to hit that downside weekly range. I think that is very, very possible because as we look at the 2-hour here, we're noticing that the 30-minute was there and looked like it wanted to cross over. And a lot of the time when that does cross over, it crosses down the 2-hour because it has divergence on the 30-minute, but the 2-hour also has that divergence. So that tells me we could see something pull down to this level. That would be a great pullback, get us down to the center line and curl back up. And I really think that's overall the most bullish you can get whenever we get down to this area because that seems the most probable now. We'll talk about it differently if that changes. Make sure to tune in because we go live and watch this stuff every single morning to make sure this type of stuff is happening. But right now you'd say a 2-hour pullback would make sense. Get down to that center line, see if we have another swing to the upside, and we're working on that swing trading course right now. So this is overall what I'm paying attention to, and I actually think this is the bullish case because when you do have 2-hour divergence, if this was not to curl up, go back up into positive territory, well, then we do have a 2-hour divergence that can roll over a daily chart. And you see how close this daily chart is to rolling over. So if we're going to see something dramatic, maybe even a move outside of our weekly range, that actually could be possible this week. Because if this just pulled back, that would most likely take you outside of that range unless you see some very sideways price action like this. So we'll pay attention to this, but I just want to show you how the bearish case is, hey, that daily could be in a pullback, not just a 2-hour, but the daily could be in a pullback. How far could you pull back? I'm really liking this level right here, this like 542.75, right in this area. If we saw a reaction down or anything like that, we might be able to have this 50 catch up and get a test of that 50, and then we will have to go from there as earnings come out later this month. So we'll pay attention to that. The Qs, a bunch of different levels as well, and I just wanted to show you guys how there's a bigger implied volatility. So we have a bigger range, right? 504.60 to the upside, and we have 485.04 to the downside. So that's something to pay attention to right away. Looking at the daily scale, what do you notice? Well, this is about to cross over. And when we talk about GME, we're going to talk about this one more time and show you guys GME's daily chart, because remember that the Qs are the collateral for the problem that's going on for those short sellers. And so when you see the Qs dropping like this, it is funny to see how GME actually has the exact opposite signal right now. So that's something to pay attention to. But you can see we're up really high. We have a little flat, slightly down divergence on the RSI, kind of flat here on the MACD at the same time. So that could be a more meaningful pullback. Is that going to stop at the 20, or is it going to be more meaningful? Are we going to dip down towards that center line and curl up over time, see some kind of pullback down to a price point of about 474, 473.90 in this area, or do we come down dramatically and fill this gap down here? here. So I'm looking at this and I'm talking about moves outside of the range, but as we get into the shorter timeframes, the shorter timeframes are going to tell us whether or not we are going to move out of those ranges, right? So if the 2 hour is able to pull even down to here and reverse back up, that would be a sign that we're going to see more positivity. And the reason that I want to talk about this one right here around that daily expected move, which happens to be 490.85 to the downside, you know, the thick red is the annual topside expected move. So we're higher up than we're supposed to go for the whole year for the Qs. Then we have 497.75 to the upside. But I just want to talk about this here, because if this direction is going to continue going on into Monday, the 30-minute here could create some kind of divergence for the Qs. Okay, I want you to see this MACD, look at the behavior, and tell me right now that you can't see that if we went down to this daily expected move rather quickly, we would cross over, but we may make a divergence right by positive territory. That is the first scenario that I am paying attention to, because it's the 30-minute time frame scenario. The direction looks down for now, and we'll have to see. But if we start to do that, then we have to see if that 30-minute completes, because that 2 hour might be by the center line. It might just be a swing trade from this area towards that 490. So pay attention to that. That can reverse back up the Qs as well, or the SPY as well. So paying attention to the Qs might actually help you out with the SPY a little bit this week, and that's what I want to get across here. Now, the 2 hour, you do have divergence up in these areas, so you have to pay attention to a daily crossing down. Now, if this daily crosses down, which means if there is negativity on Monday and that negativity holds, that's kind of why I'm talking about some kind of, little 30-minute divergence throughout Monday. If we can complete that divergence on Monday, then that could be a sign that this actually might not fully curl down by the end of the day. Okay, so we'll figure out if this is going to happen. But if this does curl down, that means, hey, we might get a reaction or something, but most likely we will end up at lower levels, maybe testing. First, we would talk about the 20, and then we'll talk about a little bit lower towards that 50, okay, towards this level down here that I kind of like, that 474. But looking at the 30-minute, it's just you can't find a ton of positivity, because this thing looks like it's going to curl over into negative territory. So it looks like the direction opening up for Monday could be down. The 30-minute is not oversold. Nothing's oversold on the SPY. So it really looks like the direction for now is going to be down, and we need to pay attention to that first line in the sand being 490.85. Let's go look at Apple real quick. Apple was one we were talking about how this is kind of looking like a double top, and it's sort of looking like a double top. You got divergence all across this thing. Now, if this is some kind of handle, we'll see that 30-minute maybe briefly curl down and be able to curl back up, right? We see this kind of look. That would make sense. So that's the one scenario to pay attention to. But if this starts to go negative and we start to take out these levels, that's not going to be a good sign. You can pay attention to your weekly expected moves, but a lot of the time, this 2 hour does curl down after you create another point of that divergence. The divergence here crossed it, and then we made almost another point here, and then that rejected it as well with just barely a lower high. So right now, the 2 hour is telling you, hey, I am still in a pullback. We're not necessarily seeing signals of any kind of reversals. I would look at the 30-minute and see if there's a tiny divergence here, but this didn't even get oversold. So I think we have a chance this week to hit a downward expected moves on a lot of these stocks, and I'd really just pay attention to if this 2 hour gives you the swing trade. If this can get close to the center line and then curl back up into positive territory, that can be a good sign for a higher move. But if this daily starts to curl down, you might be in daily pullback mode, which does have bounces, but you can end up retesting the 20. We could actually head all the way back down and maybe catch up to this 50 over time before earnings. So we'll pay attention to that going forward. But Tesla, this one here, way up in no man's land. Now it's not really overbought anymore. You could see another reaction up, but if this crosses down, pull back on the daily scale. If the 2 hour wants to, hey, it could curl up right now and we could start to see positivity. The only problem for me was this had an extreme amount of implied volatility for the month of July. It still has an extreme amount going into this week. And so it's very fishy to see this kind of behavior where it's just super, super flat for a long time. This kind of tells me there's some kind of manipulation. You do not normally see a stock with very high implied volatility just go and then just flatline. It's kind of like a heartbeat. It's like it's gonna keep doing the crazy things, right? It's gonna be crazy. No. So this might tell me there might be some short seller problem in Tesla, and I'm just being genuine about that. But let's look at the stock for what it's worth right now. It's in negative territory on the 30-minute, we can pay attention to this low here and see if we make some kind of brief divergence, right? See if we make a brief divergence, maybe around a weekly expected move or something. But overall, you would just say, hey, this 2 hour is in a pullback. And if that 2 hour is able to curl up at any time, well, then we could see that actually base out and get some sort of swing trade. So that's what I'd really pay attention to for Tesla. Obviously, if the daily reverses down, then you're in a daily pullback, so a little bit more steam there. Now, Amazon's actually been beat up for a little bit, right? This has been beat up going this way. So when you do see this kind of flagging, you want to look at a 30-minute and see, hey, oh, that's negative territory, and we could create a divergence before we want to bounce. So I'm not saying we have to create these divergences, but I'm also aware of them, because if we did just see one little reaction like this, so we bounce up, you're going to have tapering, you're going to have divergence, and that can lead to some kind of short-term little bottom for the 2 hour. So we'll pay attention to that, as daily charts have not really shown a ton of weakness across the board for a lot of stocks. That's the main signal I'd pay attention to for Amazon. Obviously, if this 2 hour, if we don't complete that, this 2 hour just turns back up, hey, we're actually still in range of positive territory. So we actually could take all of this back, test the high, even go make a new one. So I'm still thinking that because the direction is down, the 2 hours negative, the 30 minutes in negative territory, right now the most probable thing is we at least create some kind of 30-minute divergence before we see an actual 2 hour bounce. That looks like the most likely thing to me. Now, NVIDIA, we were talking about this one because we've been talking about a lower high for NVIDIA, and this really looks like it, especially if this 2 hour can go negative. What are you noticing? Well, the 2 hour crossed over and we see this again. Okay, so let's look at a 30-minute and boom, 30-minute crossing down negative territory. What's the problem here? Well, you're within that channel again. So if you're going to see a reaction down like this, what if you just taper off and create some kind of divergence on the MACD and RSI at the same time? That's what I would pay attention to for a bounce. As far as it goes, though, this thing is still rejecting, turning down on the daily scale, not able to turn back up. So maybe it needs to get a little closer to that center line. Okay, so on the 2 hour, I know I'm flipping around a lot, but I just want to give you guys the best info I can. So try to stick with me here. But the 2 hour, if this thing goes negative, well, then we'll be looking for a extreme move that maybe leads to some sort of bounce to another extreme move. And then we see that 30-minute divergence down in this area towards weekly expected moves and things like that, because NVIDIA's implied volatility has increased. The direction is down for now. We'll see if we get some kind of positive reaction from NVIDIA soon, but just pay attention to your signals very closely. Now, AMD, this one actually giving you the 2 hour divergence. You see the triple divergence on the RSI. We have a single divergence here on the MACD at the same time. So this is telling me there's weakness in the stock. This is one that we talked about in our update video on Patreon. And we just said, hey, watch out, because this thing could create the divergence here. That looks like some weakness. Oh, and then we say, yeah, this thing could bounce back up. Look for it to hit those highs and see if a triple divergence is created. And that did confirm at the end of the day. So right now, you have the momentum to the downside on the RSI. You have a crossover of the MACD with divergence behind it. So this says weakness and momentum here. And we're at least pulling back on the 30-minute. But when you look at the 2 hour, you have the divergence as well. You're far away from the center line. So we're looking like AMD could go down towards a weekly expected move. And we have to see if it's able to base out around then, or if we're going to see something crazy. Okay, so that's what I have to say about AMD. Looking at Meta going forward, this one never was able to come back. I believe it went below the weekly expected move. It looked like it retested that area almost, and then it just kept going. So as of right now, very beat up on a 2 hour. You could see some kind of reaction here. So let's go look at a shorter time frame and see if we can find any signals that tell us if we're going to get that reaction. As of right now, you are creating some divergences on the RSI, possibly even a double bottom right now. But you'd have to say this thing is very, very negative. So is this going to be like, if this does bounce, is this going to be a for sure V-shape? No, it's actually not. The more likely scenario is if you do kind of do this for a little while, you'll just kind of flag out, see this get close to the center line like we've just showed you on a bunch of other stocks, and then just see that thing curl down. And then really that's when you would look for a tapering move at that point. So am I very bullish on Meta? Well, no, I can't be on the 30-minute. It's very negative. I can't be on the 2 hour. It's just pointing straight down and negative. The only thing I could say is the daily scale looks like we could be in some kind of just pullback right now. Maybe we get that bounce. We want to get a reaction down to test that 50, and that's where we see that 30-minute divergence. And then this daily is able to go down for a couple days, turn back up. Excuse me, sorry about that. So that's what I'm looking at for Meta overall. It's just a really, really weak one at this point. You can always see bounces in these weak ones that then you have to see if that trend is going to continue. Now let's get into AMC and GME. Now these ones here, I am going to update those lines in the sand for you, because you need to know how high up you need to go in order to see something unexpected. That would be something that takes the options market by surprise, which can cause a gamma squeeze, which would just be the top side of our range. I've just been giving this out, and look at this. This is very interesting, but the top side range is exactly $6. Very interesting. So weirdly enough, actually, I think I said all of the stocks had higher implied volatility. AMC's came down just a tiny bit, and GME's went up. So GME's had a low implied volatility. Now it's actually higher than AMC's a little bit here. So AMC did come down just a tiny bit, still very large. So it's funny that this is right at $6. So what does that mean? You need to get above $6 to see something crazy. You need to get above $6 to see a gamma squeeze. You need to get above $6 to see a short squeeze. This is a very important level. We used that level last week. What did we do? We went just 4 cents shy of that level, and that's where the fight started to happen again. So that's why we pay attention to it. Right now you have a daily that is curled up, green bars, yes, slightly gray, but if that curls down, not a good sign, but right now still curled up. So you got to be a little bit positive about it until that thing drops off. Let's go look at a 2-hour real quick. The thing about this 2-hour is it's in pullback mode, right? We said the pullback mode is there. We pointed out the divergence that it did have on the 30-minute. I believe it had a 30-minute divergence here, which led to that pullback. So we're seeing that pull back. Now you have to see if that can cross and go positive again. That's a big thing. And so you see some flagging in here. So maybe we look at a 30-minute. We just see how this looks right now. Doesn't that look like it's curling up towards the center line? And we might see one more drop. If we see, this is not going to be the best thing. If you see this drop, that can cross over that daily chart, and then daily momentum can send you into that further pullback. So that's not the best sign in the world, or it can send you actually into negative territory for AMC. So you don't necessarily want this 30-minute to cross down, but you have to be aware if that does cross down, you can create a brief divergence, and maybe that wants to turn back around. As of right now, I think it's more important to talk about GME, and we're going to do this a little bit backwards here, just showing you that 30-minute divergence that led to this crossing down. As of right now, that 30-minute divergence is saying we are in pullback mode, and we might be heading down on a 2-hour chart for some kind of pullback. That is what the 30-minute divergence is telling you here. And it has confirmed, but the 2-hour has not rotated over. That thing is just pointing up and going positive. That's a very good sign for the stock. Now we have to get that updated level that we really have to pass through. You're noticing this. We actually passed through that for a moment, and where'd the fight begin, right? Pretty bullish move, and then it starts to poop out right at 26.68 last week. So let's update that upside range for you real quick. And we have 29.91. So 29.91 is how high you have to get. And you notice it's much higher up than last week. The implied volatility has increased pretty well here. So weirdly enough, the options market is expecting a crazy move. Now, the only cool part about them expecting a crazy move is we do have a signal that if that fully confirms right here on the MACD, it tells us there could be some dramatic upside for GameStop. You do have the Bollinger tighter here. You have the Bollinger Bands getting tighter, and then you have the RSI above the center line, and you have all the price action is above, with green bars, above all the moving averages. The only thing that's lagging behind is the lagging indicator, the MACD. But look how we get to that center line, and then we can curl up into positive territory. That would be the signal that you're looking for on Monday. So highly probable that you're going to see something crazy from GME on Monday. I wouldn't even be surprised if we see some news before the night market opens tonight, being Sunday. So really pay attention to this, because this is really telling us, hey, if this is able to turn up right now and this just increased, even the options market and the momentum is saying there could be a big move here. So let's pay attention to that. 29.91 looks like what you have to get above in order to see something crazy. Watch out for those gap ups, right? That's what I would have to say about that. Now, lastly, volatility. We'll talk about this on the shorter time frames just for a brief moment here, just showing the 2-hour was able to pull back here down towards 12.12. So when this did cross over, I showed you guys the 30-minute divergence. I got out of my volatility play, made a little money there, and then this did, in that 30-minute divergence, did curl over the 2-hour. So it was a great play for me. When I saw that 30-minute divergence, I already said, we're probably going to see a reaction down to 12.12 again. What do? We get that reaction to 12.12 again. Now we can see if this thing can turn back up. Okay, volatility did increase a little bit here, and so we have to see if that can really break through and start to cross up this weekly. This weekly signal is going to cross up soon, and we just need to wait and be patient, see if it's going to happen this week. So overall, that's all I wanted to talk about in today's video, but I think the main takeaway here is watch out for crazy stuff happening. We've talked about multiple times over the last month how you can really relate the stock market to real life. And I told you guys, as the stock market scales up and goes further and further into a bubble, what else is going to scale up? Political unrest, civil unrest will scale up, election unrest will scale up. Everything scales up at the same time, and then everything bad happens at the same time. We just had an attack on President Trump, so that is something to look into, because all of these things are popping off. You have the stock market that looks like it could have created a top just now, and then also you have a president possibly getting assassinated. It's like all of these things will happen at the same time, and so you really have to be aware of it in order to trade in these kinds of markets and really follow your signals closely. But it's an overall statement here. The reason I'm talking about that is just be cautious, not only with your trading, but when you're walking around, you know, be aware. Don't have your iPod or your headphones on when you're walking around outside, especially at night and things like that. Like, I just really care about your guys' safety, your family safety, and I care about my family safety, so I'm not telling you anything that I'm not doing myself. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I look forward to streaming with you live tomorrow, and I'm hoping to get that course out as soon as possible. I'm working on it over the weekend here. I just have some touch-ups, so it might be by tomorrow's live video or Monday night that I'm able to get that course, that swing trading course, up there. If you want to learn about this stuff right now, though, there is a course right now in the description, and you can click on that and really get learning how to trade in any kind of market. It will really help you out with these ranges and stuff like that. But good luck with your trading this week, guys. Seriously, good luck. Stay safe out there, and I appreciate you watching the video to the end. Thank you so much. Have a good night. Peace.